like the headphones and the camera. And, sometimes technology just says, wait a minute, let's upgrade your entire system and cause a restart on everything before you go live. And isn't that just what sometimes happens where what an allegory for OCD maybe, like how much you want something to go well and how well it could go until you throw OCD into the mix and then it just goes like
It's
that.
almost like when you think you have control, you realize that you don't.
Yes. So the technology gods have proven once again you, McGrath, not in control. Not in the slightest.
Mm-mm.
Don't even try. It's not even worth your time. Right.
Not even worth it.
Well, anyway, hey Brenna, what up?
Hi, Dr. McGrath. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you, everyone. We're going to sing the entire group today, Brenna and I. We're just going to do it as a Grease inspired duet, just so you know.
Wow, I wish you would have told me before so I could practice.
You didn't practice? You didn't get the memo? What?
I
Um,
think I missed that.
no. Okay. Well, all right then. Um, part of the reason we're here tonight is we wanted to chat a little bit about the fact that we are coming toward the close of Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think that it's so important as we've put out so much messaging around this that we really talk about the fact that mental health is not the stopper of life that many people who experience mental health issues it's not the stopper of life that it seems like it has to be, right? And I can talk about this from a treatment perspective, and a lot of people will say, yeah, well, you're just kind of supposed to say that, and we pay you to treat us. And if it didn't work, you wouldn't get paid. So you're probably making it up anyway. So wouldn't it be, I thought, more interesting to talk to someone who might have some lived experience in the whole type of thing? And boy, I think that might be why you're here. I have a feeling, unless I'm wrong about that, and you just showed up on my StreamYard just to say hi. I don't know. It could be one or the other, I suppose. But
Yeah, I mean, man, do I have lived experience with this? Yeah, I mean, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's been so cool to see all the different people and companies speaking out about mental health. We have a long way to go, but there's been so much awareness. Ultimately, awareness is what saved me, and is I found treatment because someone was talking about OCD, and I didn't know I had OCD. So OCD will think that your life is ending. Like it feels like it. And whenever you're in the middle of it, that nothing else matters. I have to figure out my OCD right now, or else it's over. And but I'm here to say that you can live a full and beautiful life despite having this debilitating disorder. So, and I hope that's one thing that you take away from this is that you can still have OCD and also have a beautiful life.
what's your life like now versus when OCD was at its deepest, darkest point?
I am living the life I want to live. I think OCD will tell you certain things and make you do certain things and live a life that is not how you would ideally like to live. And I think through behaviors and through practice and patience and self compassion, I got myself to the point where I can live how I want to live, even if OCD is still around. And I think that's the most powerful part is that, like, you just live your life even if OCD is there. And I think we think that, like, okay, once OCD is gone, then we can live our life. And that's, I think, one of the biggest lessons, I think, is that, like, you have to continue on with your life and your values, even if you don't feel like it, because that teaches OCD that you're the one in power, not OCD.
And that was just an overnight you decided, correct? And then you were done and you didn't have to worry about it anymore. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I wish. It's not.
I'm sorry. Maybe it was something different. My apologies. Yeah. Mhm.
Definitely not.
Mhm.
Um, I think I've had episodes in my life of OCD. I call it episodes. I don't know if that's a clinical term. I don't know, but
We'll
where
say it is tonight. Why not? What the hell? Yeah.
okay, well, one day I'm totally fine. The next day I am. All I can think about is my obsession, whatever popped in my brain, and that's it. Um, and I didn't give therapy my greatest shot until a couple of years ago. And that's whenever I was like, I have to learn the skills now so that I could apply them for my life. And I think it's was one of those things where I had nothing else and I was like, I have to give this a shot. And we'll see what happens. You know, you take that risk and you don't know. And so I took the risk and thank God you have to give it your biggest shot because you know OCD is scary and it's going to make you try to fall for its tricks time and time again, even throughout therapy. But you learn the skills over time, and you increase you increase your tolerance for uncertainty. And because of that, my brain started to understand what I was doing, and I never want to say beat OCD. Like that's not the right term, but I know its tricks now and I know what to do whenever it pops up, which I did not know before therapy.
OCD probably wanted you to solve things, right?
Oh yeah.
OCD probably tried to convince you that there was some deeper meaning into everything that you thought, or every wish that you had, or every urge that you experienced, or every feeling you felt, or every image that popped into your head, right?
Oh yeah, and it feels real. I think that's one of the worst parts about OCD in my opinion. I think a lot of people would agree is that it feels real. Every obsession, thought, like people that don't have OCD don't understand how real it feels. Because if it didn't feel real, we wouldn't be struggling this hard. You know, like we think it's coming true. That's why we do these compulsions and to try to get rid of it. But once you do those compulsions, you realize that you need to keep on doing them and it keeps you in that cycle.
You know, and I'm sure this never happened to you, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just because. Did OCD ever interfere with OCD treatment?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of those questions is like, oh, you don't even have OCD. Why are you doing this? You know, this is pointless because you don't even have OCD.
Hmm.
And then that just then you start obsessing about that, and it's like, well, do I? And then you just go down that spiral again. It's a doubting disorder. It's going to doubt everything, even if you have OCD, like your diagnosis. It's going to be like, well, actually, maybe this is real and it's not OCD. I had that thought. I can't tell you how many times.
I'm looking through some questions. ABF has a lot of things on there. I'm not going to read all of it, but wonders if ERP can get to uh, the deeper metaphysical dimensions of the disorder. I I wonder if people who have existential OCD would be concerned about this idea that there may be deeper metaphysical dimensions of the disorder, but people without existential OCD might not have ever given that a thought whatsoever, and also have been treated very well with exposure and response prevention therapy. On the flip side, ERP is also not religious, right? And yet has seemed to have been helpful for people who experience scrupulosity. ERP does not espouse a particular morality, but helps with people who have moral scrupulosity. ERP does not set a standard for what is clean or not, but helps people who have concerns around these areas. The one of the goals of OCD, of course, is we have to know all of these things before we could even be helped. So to look at ABFs, if OCD involves intrusive thoughts of a more religious or existential nature, doesn't that raise the question of whether a purely materialistic or reductionistic framework is even capable of addressing the deeper metaphysical dimensions of this? In what kind of therapeutic framework has this as an epistemological foundation? Which I think on one hand would be an interesting discussion, and on the other hand, sounds amazingly obsessive compulsive disorder to me for somebody who might be concerned that first I have to figure all of this out before I can get any kind of help or treatment for this. Sometimes you just have to go with it. I don't know all of the reasons why airplanes fly, but I take them, right? I have a pretty good understanding of it, but I don't know all of the ins and outs of the experience, and yet I can still rely on it. And so I'm always worried when people want to do things like in OCD treatment, you know what, doc, I got to tell you absolutely everything about me that's ever happened in my life, because how can you treat me without knowing everything? Because if you don't know everything, that you might not have all the information. And if you don't have all the information, how can you help me deal with something if you are, excuse me, if you are ignorant of some of the information that might be contributing to the thing that I'm dealing with? I don't even know that I know everything about myself, much less anybody else, right? And yet, I'd like to think, and I've seen the results of assessments and people living their life, that ERP can be helpful. Just like I've also seen people start on a big wheel and then a tricycle and then a bike with training wheels and then a parent holding them as the training wheels come off and then eventually letting them go and riding a bike. I don't have to understand all of the uh, physics of all of those things in order to see that you can teach people by steps to do things that they were afraid of or uncomfortable with or didn't know how to do.
Right. I think people get maybe nervous starting ERP therapy because it kind of is the exact opposite of what you've been training your brain to do. And you're exposing yourself to your fear, your biggest fear, and you don't know what's going to happen. I think going into ERP, I thought, well, what if it's actually true? What I'm obsessing about, like, what if I go into therapy and realize that it's true?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that being a thought too, because I think I wanted to figure it out. Just like all of us with OCD, you're trying to figure something out. And I think when you try to go on the quest to figure it out, you just get lost time and time again, and you never ever will find an answer, no matter how many times OCD says that there is an answer.
Doesn't that suck though? Wouldn't it be nice to have all the answers? I mean, you know,
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's like if a lot of people with OCD, I feel like struggle with the black and white thinking of like, okay, like living in the gray is just not it. And that's how I was growing up. I could not move on with my day unless I had an answer or it was black and white. And ERP is not black or white. ERP is in the gray. And, but once you do it and you practice it, you realize the gray isn't that bad. But
mm-hmm.
you don't know unless you try. So it's like,
So, oh no, please go.
no, I was just going to say, someone said this one time and it really stuck with me. ERP is like when you're learning how to swim and you just kind of get tossed in the deep end and you kind of become accustomed to it, and then you realize it's not bad and it's not scary. And that really stuck with me for some reason, because whenever you're a kid learning how to swim, the worst thing ever is going to the deep end, because
Oh,
you don't know what's down there. You don't know if you can get out. You don't know if you can save yourself. You don't know. That's the worst. That's the worst fear. So whenever you're thrown into that, just like ERP, you don't know what's going to happen. And But once you do it and you're in the deep end long enough, you realize that you don't need to know if it's real or if it's not. And you learn to swim.
So you'll like this one, and maybe I'll let you answer it. Mandy5231 asked me a question, which is, I like how you're lighthearted and don't take yourself so seriously, which I would agree. But then says, has that been a part of your recovery journey? Mandy, well, I'm going to let Brenna. Brenna, do I have OCD?
Not that I know of.
No, I don't. Which, Mandy, you have given me, again, what my favorite compliment in the world is, because people assume I have OCD because I talk about it in such a way that many people say, well, you must have OCD because you think like you have OCD. And I think that that's why I'm pretty darn good at treating OCD, because I think like I have OCD, even though I don't have it.
Yep.
That's what I would say. So,
Period.
yeah. And I don't know, Brenna, you work at NOCD. You work with people who have OCD. You work with people who have OCD and treat OCD. You work with people who don't have OCD. Sometimes one of the questions is, of course, can somebody without OCD treat someone with OCD? And what are your thoughts about that?
Yes. Like, I mean, it seems, I can see if you have OCD and you learn that your therapist doesn't have OCD, I can see how OCD could latch onto that. I can
Absolutely.
100% see that. But once you learn that OCD has despite the themes, despite the content of your OCD, it has similar traits throughout each person, and I think you can pick up on those as a therapist. I'm sure I'm not a therapist, and I guess treat the individual with their theme, obviously, but knowing what OCD is and those similar traits.
So Mandy's reply was this. So that was cool. But so if you want to know what my secret is to doing this, I will share it with everyone right now, because it's actually quite simple. OCD has one playbook that it runs. And that playbook is this. Oh, there's that thing. What could be the worst possible thing that I could think about that and then attribute it to me as being the worst possible person for ever having that kind of thought, image, or urge? And then what is the weirdest, strangest, oddest, maybe undoiest thing that I could possibly do to make sure that doesn't happen, so that if it were to happen, I don't have any blame for it whatsoever, or I somehow protect all the people that I can, because if I don't, I'll have to live in guilt and shame and disgust for the rest of my life. And therefore, wouldn't it be better just to do it than not do it? That's my OCD playbook.
That sounds about right.
I haven't met someone with OCD yet that didn't work for.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And there's always another what if.
Well, yes, right. If there's anything about OCD, it's got one more yeah, but what if than I have an answer for. Right? I have never in my life come up with enough answers for someone with OCD.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't matter how long we talked. Anyone with OCD will always end the conversation, not me, because they will always have another yeah, but what if? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's logical or not, because OCD is not a logical problem, right? It is an emotional problem. Mm-hmm. And so my reply to the last yeah, but what if, maybe I do get the last word, and I don't know, but my reply is, could be. Mm-hmm. And then the person with OCD say, well, I don't want that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say, too bad. I don't want it for you either, but it is what it is, right?
There will always be another what if. And it took me, I think, going to ERP therapy and giving it my all a couple years ago to realize that like you will never ever satisfy OCD with an answer. So you might as well just don't try to give it an answer, because guess what? It's never going to be good enough for it.
Yeah. I don't know anyone whose OCD said, finally, thank you. All right, we're good now. Catch you later. Did your OCD once thank you, Brenna, for giving it anything?
Oh my gosh, no, it always doubted it. It always doubted the answer. And I think if people don't have OCD, they could be like, well, just stop doing that to yourself. I think from the outside it could look like that, but it's so different because OCD hits you where it hurts, and it latches onto your values and things that you love the most. And so it feels deeper to us.
Let's talk about that, but it feels real. And you brought this up earlier, and I'm so glad you did, because to me, it's another one of those key learnings about OCD that therapists who aren't as familiar with OCD maybe don't understand, is this notion of, but it feels real. Right? And as long as it feels real, there you go. Excuse me. Sorry, big sneeze came out. But I love to ask people this one very simple question: what could you not justify with the phrase, but it feels real? You could say absolutely the most ridiculous thing in the entire world and make it justified by saying, and I'll tell you what, that really feels real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You could say terrible things and justify them because it feels real to me. Right? You could say wonderful. You could say anything and put that phrase there. And OCD is definitely going to be ruled by this idea that, what can I do to make it not feel so real?
Yep.
And if that's your goal for treatment, you've already failed.
Because you're supposed to go on with it feeling real. You're
Yeah.
supposed to live your life the way that you would want to, despite it feeling real.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because it's an emotional thing. If OCD often latches on to things that you love the most, like people, places, things, feelings, relationships, whatever it is. So of course it's going to feel devastating. And of course you're going to try to make it go away. Like, that makes total sense in my brain. As an outsider, if you don't have OCD, I could see why people would try to do that. But what you don't know is that trying to make it go away always makes it come back. And it took me a while to get to that place of understanding that.
Could you read Kyle's at 6:28 Central Time?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you're the best one to actually answer this question.
Okay. Kyle said, "Hi, Dr. McGrath. I've been an OCD conqueror for a few months. It's awesome.
Woo!
And I was wondering what recovery looks like in the long term. I've had weeks where I feel completely unbothered and some that are really heavy." Yeah. I mean, Kyle, I get it. I think just remember that OCD does ebb and flow, and that you are going to have some good days and some bad days, but having the tools that you have, that you can do it. You've done it once, you can do it again. And I get it though, because I think as an OCD conqueror, it's like, I shouldn't be struggling. It's like I'm an OCD conqueror. I've done it. I've gone through therapy. I've seen success. Why am I struggling still? But that is part of the journey. And I think these small setbacks actually are a great time to practice your skills, because you are going to have setbacks. You are going to have triggers that happen. And the more times you expose yourself to them and practice your skills, the better you become at it. And I think that's kind of what I've been working on actually the past couple of years, is realizing that, like, there's been terrible seasons of my life since I've become an OCD conqueror. And sometimes I slip back into those same behaviors. And that's, I want to say, like, give yourself grace because I've been there. But know that you've done it once, you can do it again. And you have the skills in your toolbox. You have the tools to show OCD who's boss. Like you do, you've done it. And, but I want you to know that you're not alone in feeling like that because that's very normal.
Cyclops says theirs gets worse with stress. And of course, yes. Uh, OCD is an opportunistic ass that
Yep.
will try to get at you when your defenses are down a bit or you're distracted. It could be along hormonal changes. It could be in menopause. It could be in periods. It could be in stressors like good or quote unquote good or bad stressors. Like maybe a new job is great, but it's a stressor. Having a baby, great, but a stressor maybe. Moving to a new house, awesome, but a stressor maybe as well. Uh, Getting engaged, right? Dating someone, whatever it might be. OCD says, "Ooh, a change. Let's fuck it up, right? Let's
Right.
see what we can do to just get right in there and screw with that, right?"
Right.
Mhm.
I will say I had a big move last week, and I noticed my OCD and anxiety started to increase the probably 10 days before the move. And I just felt myself getting more anxious, and these intrusive thoughts became more sticky. And I kept on being like, why? What's going on? You know? And obviously, we don't want to try to figure out all the time, like, why our OCD is bad. But I think it's important to note that stress can have that impact. And I remembered, okay, maybe I'm more anxious because I have a huge event coming up. And maybe if I ride it out, it'll all be fine.
There you go. A even asks how to work through the shame of guilt associated with sexual compulsions, so like testing yourself to taboo thoughts. I see this on the community a lot, where people are always concerned about things around sex, sexual orientation, pedophilic things. Wondering if they've done something worrying. Uh, it, Here's what it comes down to: can I accept the fact that I'm a human who experiences thoughts and images and urges that sometimes I like, sometimes I don't, sometimes are weird and bizarre, sometimes are wonderful and lovely, sometimes are strange, and sometimes are ones that I wish I didn't have, right? That there's no difference in that between somebody with and without OCD. That goes across the board, right? The the only difference is with OCD, there's this added shame or guilt or disgust or wondering why I had that, what does it mean? Am I a bad person for having it? Versus for those of us without OCD, when we have them, we go, ah, all right, all right. And then we move on. And we give it no time of the day. We give it no power. We give it no attention. And we just allow it to be there. But for some reason, and Brenna, you could talk about this from your lived experience, for some reason, that seems very different for you, that you and I could experience the exact same thing. And I'd be like, oh, that was weird. And you might be like, oh, shit. Now that's going to kick something off again and go down this rabbit hole, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, because it feels real, you
There we go.
know?
Yeah, there we go again. Back to that. That's going to be our recurring theme tonight, I think.
It's seriously, I think anyone that I've talked to with OCD says that that phrase right there, but it feels real, is one of the biggest hurdles because it's such an emotional thing, like we talked about. It's not logical.
That might be a talk that I have to propose at a conference in the future. You tell me it's OCD, but it feels real to me, right? Maybe that's where we need to have a little talk about or something.
100%. I mean, I think people wouldn't be stuck for so long if it didn't feel real, Like it would not be a thing.
I wouldn't have a job if it didn't feel real. I mean,
Right, right,
Mhm.
right. It's for me at least the hardest part was getting past that, and I never did get past that. You just decide to live with it and see if it comes true or not. And
Mhm.
I say that with confidence now, but for everybody listening, that was not always the case. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Cyclops, I think you're asking the wrong question. Cyclops, I'm going to pull it up here. So you say, is there a good way to guard yourself in stressful situations to avoid intrusive thoughts effects? Uh, that's not the goal. The goal is to just allow them to be there and move on, not to avoid them. Because once you attempt to avoid some kind of thought, Brenna, how many thoughts did you try to avoid, and how many times successfully did you avoid them?
you're not going to like the answer. Um, yeah, no, I get it. I think being triggered, I think people will put themselves in situations so they don't get triggered, But as you're doing that, you may not see it now, but you're making your OCD worse. But I get it. Like OCD is debilitating. I understand to some degree why people would want to do that. But actually being in a place where you could get triggered is a great opportunity for you.
Mhm. Yeah. Alex says sitting with it is the easiest and yet most difficult and annoying answer. I'm going to take it one step further, Alex. Living with it, not sitting with it, living with it, right? That's really where you want to go. Brenna doesn't sit with her OCD and then once it's cleared, go and lives her life. She lives her life with her OCD.
Mm-hmm. And that's what really gets OCD is whenever you decide to live with it, not try to get rid of it. That's powerful.
Oh, does that annoy OCD to no end? I will tell you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's. I also think people don't, without OCD, don't realize how hard it is to sit with it, though. Too, like, I think there's a lot of talk about like just accepting your thoughts, and I I love that. I love the whole idea of like radical acceptance, which maybe you can talk about, but where I try this every single day. I allow my thoughts in my brain, and people are like, "What?" with OCD, but you're not accepting the content of your thoughts. You're accepting that the thought flew in your brain from we don't know where, we don't know why, we don't need to know those answers, but for some reason that thought popped into your brain. And accepting the presence of the thought was a game changer for me.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't. I don't know where my some of my own thoughts come from. I mean, some of them are really, really out there. I got to tell you. I mean, some of them are just like what? Or yeah, I have gone through my home recently and just kind of done a big purge of stuff. But I found some journals and writings from when I was a teenager, and I'm reading these going, who the hell is this person? I mean, what is going on in this brain of this person here? No, it's me. But so all right, well, I don't. I
Everybody
don't.
has weird thoughts.
Yeah,
Everybody
and
has weird.
we don't have to understand everything. OCD says we do, but the reality is, what? Why would we believe for a second that we have to actually understand everything?
Right,
Right?
right. Yeah. And I think we want to understand it so much because it's often latching on to the things that you love the most, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever it goes that route, which it typically does, it's like, all right, we have to understand what's going on because I can't be having these thoughts about my significant other. That's not, I can't do that. And I'm curious, do we know why OCD latches onto the things we love the most?
Well, if it latched onto things you didn't care about, why would you ever do a compulsion?
Ooh,
Right? I mean, let's say that you don't care if your food touches at all. If you had obsessions about that, what would your compulsion be if you didn't care about
wow, yeah. I mean, that just unlocked something in my brain, I think.
it?
People needed to hear that, actually. As simple as it is, that's important.
Mhm. Yeah. I've never treated someone for OCD about something they didn't care about.
Right. Because you love it so much that something going wrong with it is too much to handle. We're not strong enough to handle that.
Yeah, love it, think it's important enough, or think it's too taboo for anyone else to deal with it. Whatever that might be, right? OCD says that somewhere a line has been crossed, and we got to bring ourselves back on the other side of the line. And the only way to do that is through a compulsion.
Right.
It's like this is the offering to OCD for this transgression that I have made about something so important.
Right. Right. Also, I think it's really important to talk about taboo OCD thoughts and obsessions because I think there's a lot of shame there. And so if you're listening to this and you're struggling with taboo thoughts, please know you are not alone. I've had myself gone through very taboo themes and I felt a lot of shame and sometimes still don't like to talk about those themes because it feels so taboo to me still. So I get it. I get it, but know that regardless of your theme, no matter how taboo it is, know that there's hope for you right now. Because I know how it feels whenever you're in it and you think, I can't talk to anyone about this because I'm going to be sent to jail or something's going to happen to me. And I'm scared to go to therapy. It's so isolating. So, obviously, all OCD themes are debilitating, but I've had a lot of taboo themes. So, just wanted to take a moment to talk about that.
Yeah. It was always interesting to me whenever I ran an OCD group. All the new people would always say, boy, I wish I had that kind of OCD that someone else was talking about, right? Everybody wants everyone else's OCD but theirs because they think, oh, that one would be so easy to deal with. But the reality is, it would be easy for you to deal with because you're not thinking it's as important as the person who's talking about their OCD thinks that is. And guess what? The reverse is also true. They wish they had yours.
Yep. And to expand on that, anytime I've gone through a new OCD theme, I've been like, dang, I wish I'd had my previous theme back. And that sounds crazy because when you're in it, you think it can't get worse than this. There's
No,
no
that happens all the time. All the time.
no way it can get worse than the one I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you always think like, man, I just wish I had that last one.
Yeah. Can we bring that one back? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It would be so much better to have than this one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really a jerk.
I mean, and it's crazy. I feel like I've had one theme that's like kind of come back a couple times in my life, and it's interesting how I'll be like, oh, I wish I had that theme, and then it does happen again, and then I'm like, wait, I wish I had the one that I just had.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
When I was wishing that I had this one. Yeah, now with this one back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. The one you have is always the worst one. Mm-hmm.
always
Mm-hmm.
because it feels real.
Yeah. Yeah. And Lisa says it's horrible to have contamination OCD and be scared of absolutely everything. But someone with moral scrupulosity could say the exact same thing, right? It's terrible to have moral based OCD and be scared of absolutely everything, right? Because uh, of all judgments, even there's I'm looking out the window right now and there's a twig on the sidewalk. If I don't go outside right now and grab it and somebody goes and walks on it and slips and falls and they get hurt, it's because I chose not to intervene and do something that could have prevented that. And so I could even be scared of a twig on a sidewalk, right? Cyclops says I've been there. All right. So, you know, uh, when you have OCD, you have fear or anxiety or stress or discomfort or shame or guilt or disgust or whatever unwanted emotion might be included in that whole experience there. OCD is kind of like a chameleon. It's going to do whatever it possibly can to get you to do a compulsion, and it's going to have you feel whatever it needs you to feel to motivate you to do that compulsion. And once you do the compulsion, you get a little tiny bit of relief, and then the cycle starts all over again, and you keep going down the rabbit hole. And I think one of the things that OCD does that makes it so very insidious, here's one of my other definitions of OCD sort of, is this notion that OCD tells you a very tiny but very powerful lie. And that is, this time might be the time you get it right. And the reason that's a lie is that when you have OCD, you're never going to get it right enough for OCD. So sometimes I describe OCD like Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown. And Charlie Brown sees her holding the football and thinks every time that football's on the ground, that this is going to be the time that he's going to kick the football. And he runs and he runs and he goes, and just as about he's going to kick it, she goes like this and lifts the football up, and he goes flying through the air and lands and smack down. It's like, ah. And I saw an interview with Charles Schultz, and he said in the interview, Charlie Brown will never kick the football because the nature of Lucy will always be to pick the football up. And the nature of OCD will always be to not allow you to have the answer that you want so that you will do another compulsion. And therefore, OCD, again, can only do what it knows how to do. It's like a hardwired program, right? It's RAM instead of ROM, right? or ROM instead of RAM is what, yeah, ROM, maybe that's it. ROM, my old computer terms coming back. But it's hardwired. It's written in there. It won't be changed, right? It is just the way that it is. And if you've fallen for the trick that says you can outsmart OCD, which OCD sure hopes you will fall for that trick because that's what it wants you to try to do, you are doomed to the hamster wheel of hell where you will just go around and around and around and get absolutely nowhere whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And let's talk about mental compulsions too.
Ooh, one of my favorites. Yeah.
Because I think, at least for me, one of the most challenging parts about OCD treatment was that I needed to figure out what my compulsions were because all mine were mental. And so I knew I had OCD. I knew I was doing compulsions, but I couldn't figure out what exactly I was doing to make my anxiety from the obsessions go away. That was one of the biggest hurdles for me as well.
Yeah. And I think because Hollywood doesn't show mental compulsions, because that would look really boring on a TV show, because it would look like this, which isn't exciting television whatsoever, if that's the case. People don't think of mental compulsions as being compulsions, but they are. And what do you do for a mental compulsion? You have to also work on accepting doubt and uncertainty. So we love the maybe, maybe not phrases, or it could be, it's a possibility. I accept not being able to know 100% at all. Those types of things. Whatever statements of doubt we can put into that experience, that's really what we want to do, because we want people to be able to, again, live with whatever it is that pops into your head, right? You know, people
Yep.
have heard me on here say at some point I might leave this webinar, light a rag on fire, stuff it in a bottle of alcohol, and throw it at my neighbor's house, setting it on fire with a Molotov cocktail, then go into the middle of the street, poop into a bag, put it in front of another neighbor's house, light it on fire, and then ring the doorbell. They'll come out and see this flaming poopy bag and stomp on it, and then they'll have flaming poop on their shoe, and I'll laugh at them hysterically for having flaming poop on their shoe. And then I'll shoot a couple of geese that are flying over the house, and then I'll come back and I'll rejoin the webinar. Now, it is a possibility that that will happen. I don't think it's happened yet, but also maybe all the homes around my house are just fake houses because I've already burned them down and I just don't quite remember if I did or not. So maybe what I need to do is leave the webinar now and go check to see if they're real homes or not, and if there's people actually living in them, or is it just an elaborate mirage that my city has done to keep me in a jail that I don't know that I'm in.
Ooh,
I don't know, right? Maybe.
maybe.
I'm going to accept that I don't know for sure.
Right. And it's like you don't know sometimes that you're ruminating, on it. And because that whole scenario, someone could be thinking about 24/7. Like, what if that does happen? Let's make sure it doesn't happen. I'm going to look at my past experiences and see if there's any clues to tell me if I would do that. Um, Mental compulsions are hard. That's all I didn't have any physical compulsions. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was like I had to figure out what I was doing to make my anxiety from these obsessions go away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a game changer for me as well, because then at that point you're aware of it, and then so the next time it happens, you can tell yourself mentally, at least I did, like, okay, I just did a compulsion. Being aware of it was huge.
Yeah. They are not your friend. Right?
No, it'll feel like it because that anxiety feels so intense. It'll tempt you to doing it, to doing the mental compulsions, but it'll never be good enough.
The allure of OCD, I can only imagine the strength that it must have over someone to get them to do something that they logically know makes no sense whatsoever, but they're so afraid of the what if possibility that it just takes over and leads them to do something that they wouldn't recommend to anyone else in their life to do whatsoever. I mean, how many people did you tell to do all of the compulsions that you were doing in your life? Your mom? Did you ever go up to your mom and say, hey, Ma, if you ever have a thought like this, here's what you need to do?
Oh my gosh. I would never tell anyone to do what I did. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you
Yeah.
stuck and you're not present. Like someone put in the chat, mental compulsions are hard because you are there, but you're not present. You're in what ifville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one wants to live in what ifville. It's a really crappy town. But it's kind of like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but it feels like you can never leave, right? Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to keep getting the same results. And I think, Brenna, that happened to you for so long. You kept doing the same thing, kept getting the same results, and kept wondering why you were stuck in OCD.
Yep. Yep. You do the same thing and then you wonder why I am not better. I'm like, I do the exact same things, and it's you gotta I think you said this once, like you have to try different, not harder or something. What was that
Don't
phrase?
try harder, try different.
Yeah, there you go.
Might have written a book called that, which is available on Amazon now. I have finally put it out there in the world. If anyone's interested, don't try harder, try different. Check it out. So shameless self promotion there. But yeah, I think people who go through this treatment are very brave, and it, I love seeing what you're doing with your life, Brenna, knowing what you've gone through to get to where you are today. I think it's a testament to your
Mhm.
strength and your desire to, as you said at the beginning, live the life that you want to live and not the life that OCD wanted you to live.
Thank you. I think it's great hearing it from you because a lot of people just don't understand, and they don't understand how hard OCD can be. But no matter how tough and how debilitating OCD is, you are stronger than it, even if right now it doesn't feel like it.
So we're doing a cool thing here at NOCD right now. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to tell everybody some of the stuff we're working on?
Yeah. Um, so right now, so as you guys know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and our clinical leadership team, including Dr. McGrath, we're doing free consultation calls with our leadership team. And this is a great opportunity to speak one on one with a clinical leader. And I know a lot of you guys may be having questions about like what's going on. Do I have OCD? What does treatment look like? What does living with OCD look like? This is a great opportunity for you to talk for free to one of our clinical leaders. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the chat for you guys to book one of those free 15-minute consultation calls. And we would love for you guys to sign up because, in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we're trying to do as much as we can to bring awareness and just special month. I wish we didn't have it because that means that people have struggled, but we do. So we got to do the best we can with it. So let's see. Trying to share it. It looks like I'm trying to join the chat and it's not.
Oh, maybe I can do it.
I'll message you the link.
All right. Why don't you do that? That sounds wonderful.
There you go. Just message that to you on Slack.
The joys. There's the link.
Please
Yeah.
give us a call. Our team would love to speak with you. You never know what could be on the other side of a phone call. You never know what you can learn. There is limited spots though, so definitely check that link out and book your call as soon as possible. Yeah, just copy and paste that into your browser that he just put.
Yep. I'll even do a little shorter one there. That's from when I opened it, but here we go. Here's the more convenient one right there. Try that one. Just do that one. There we go.
Both work. So
Both work. Both work. So.
Either work. Please, please, please. If you're struggling and want to talk to someone, this is your chance. This is your opportunity to do it. You never know what can come out of it, and we just really encourage you to take the opportunity to speak to one of our leaders, just like McGrath. So
Awesome. Well, Brenna, it's been a joy. Thank you for being here tonight.
it was
So
so fun.
happy to have you chat about all the great work you've done, and thrilled to watch you just continue to kick the crap out of OCD and live that life. So,
Well, thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing for NOCD and just the OCD community. It wouldn't be the same without you. So we appreciate you. I think everybody would say that too here. You're doing so much work and it means a lot to all of us.
awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks all for joining. We'll see you again next time. Check me out tomorrow night on our Wednesday night webinar to have Dr. John Grayson on for our monthly fun time chat. So we'll talk to you then. Have
Bye.
a good night, everyone. Be good to yourselves and